I'll be very surprised if it happened. And at the end of the day, United are not going to sign Lewis Hall and Sandro Tonali from Newcastle.
No,
there's not a world where that happens. And Newcastle have already sold Gordon for big money this summer. They don't need to sell now. And Lewis Hall, given there's other midfield options to Tonali, Hall feels like if you're going to go for one Newcastle player, you make it Hall. Yeah.
Jay here for Stretford, Paddock, and this is a bit of a chat with one of our favourite journalists. Tyrone Marshall's come in
from
Manchester.
To all of them.
I mean, I do, to be fair. You're not wrong. But it's true with you. I'm just lying to the others. Tyrone Marshall, who's the Manchester United reporter for Manchester Evening News, joins me and Finn as well. How are we, Finn?
Very well, thank you. Yeah,
good to see you back on the channel. It's been a while. It's like filling in for Joe Smith, aren't you? Know? Yeah. It's just like, Joe's old news, you know what I mean? Yeah. Joe's like,
we've upgraded.
We've upgraded. Like Joe's like 4G and this is 5G. We thought we'd get you in to have a chat, obviously, about the various stories that you've been covering, the various stories that are doing the rounds. There's loads of United transfer news at the minute. Some of it looking likely, some of it unlikely, some of it we're not so sure about. So we thought the three of us could have a little bit of a chat and pick through the bones of some of the latest United reports, rumours, whatever you want to call them. I want to start with one though that sort of came and went very quickly. It was like our sort of United's cup campaign last season. It was over before he got going.
Happened in the night.
Yeah. Christian Romero was linked with United for about half an hour. And then he wasn't anymore. What did you make of that, and where did it come from? Because I think you were one of the ones that dismissed it and said this isn't happening. Like, what happened there?
I mean, it's a bit of a strange one. It did come from a respected journalist in Argentina who was saying before was first with some of the Martinez injury news, of which there is a lot, unfortunately, of Martinez injury news. But yeah, United are insisting that there's nothing in it. They don't want him, but I think centre-back's an interesting one, isn't it? Like I put that on a couple of social media channels this morning, and most of the responses were, well, we need another defender.
Yeah.
And it's like there are five centre-backs there who on paper look a good fit. You've got the experienced one, two who should be in their prime, two youngsters, left-footed, right-footed, good passers, good dribblers. But the problem is you just can't get them all on the pitch, can you? But I don't see a scenario where United are going to sign another centre-back and carry six centre-backs into next season unless someone goes, and I don't think anyone's going to go.
What about the academy now? I hear that. What about the academy thing? Do you think anyone's ready to be another option? Because, like Ty's saying there, on paper, you look here, you've got what seems like the perfect sort of complement of defenders. You've got Martinez, who's obviously outstanding, De Ligt, who's one of the best defenders in the world on his day, and then you've got obviously Maguire, who, I think we're all scratching our heads why he's not gone to the World Cup, and then you've got Lenny Yoro and Aidan Heaven, who are outstanding youngsters. But the problem is, two of those defenders I mentioned are injured a lot. Mm-hmm. Another one, well, the other three could argue have had injuries, which isn't just natural. So what do you think? Do you think there could be someone from the academy that maybe just steps up?
I think it's difficult because, like you said, there's so many options there. I think it would take a real kind of collapse for an opportunity to open up for one of these players. There are centre-backs and defenders that the club value highly in the academy. Dan Armour and Godwill Kokonki have had really strong seasons. Albert Mill has come into the fray and he's been really impressive. He got his first England call-up recently for the youth sides. So there are good players there. There are players that, I think if push came to shove, could maybe fit in and at a push do a job there. But obviously that step up is very big, and there are experienced players there, and then even the younger players in Heaven and Yoro, both incredibly highly rated, and they've both shown that they can do it at a high level, and their experience or lack of isn't an issue. So I think in the immediate term we're not probably going to see a defender like that really pushed quickly. I just don't think the pathway and the opportunity is there. I think they'll look for loans for especially Kokonki and Armour. They'll probably explore loans there, and there'll be some coming through the under-18s, first-year scholars coming through, but nothing in the immediate term. I wouldn't be surprised though if maybe we're looking at market opportunities from smaller, less explored markets for maybe one or two more younger defenders to fill in certain positions, but nothing that I'm aware of really.
What about, no, I hear that. What about sort of the scenario where, let's say for example, we have had these Lewis Hall links, what I'll ask you about. If Lewis Hall comes in, let's say you've got Lewis Hall there as an option at left back, obviously. You've also got, if you were in trouble, the option of using Luke Shaw as a centre back or Nusayr Mazraoui as a centre back. All of a sudden, having that extra defender just gives you a little bit of leeway. Just on Lewis Hall, because he's the name that keeps popping up. Do you think there's a real interest there? Could you see anything happening?
Yeah, I think there is a real interest there, and he fits the bill. I mean, there was a couple of stories about Cucurella the other day, and he very obviously does not fit the bill. They've got Luke Shaw, who's 30. They're looking at a succession plan this summer. They want a younger left-back who can take Luke Shaw's spot either this season or next season. That is the plan. And the left-backs that we know they've looked at, Hall, Nathaniel Brown in Germany, Lewis Skelly for a bit, they all fit that mould of young left-backs who can come in, might start the season as Shaw's backup, might end the season as first choice. Cucurella, I think, is a similar age to Luke Shaw. Like, that's not the plan.
Yeah.
Then it's very obvious they've got to sign a left-back this summer, I think, because Malacia's going. Dorgu can play left-back, might end up there. I don't know if you'd want him to play left-back against Real Madrid in the Champions League, for example.
Do you know at the moment what the club view him at? Because I feel like that's really confusing. Obviously, he was brought in as more of a left-back, but in Italy, played in a bunch of positions, played on the right wing and the left and at left-back. Is there a consensus within the coaching staff about what he is? Or
I think they see him as both at the moment. I think more likely left wing, but he could play left back against Hull home and away next season, couldn't he? And do a job as an attacking left back. I think if you're playing City or Arsenal or a big European game, you'd want someone who's better defensively. I mean, he is quite young, and the left-sided situation is interesting because they are looking at left wingers as well as left backs. Dorgu has shown he can play left wing and has done really well there, but it's 3 games. Like, it's a pretty small sample size, isn't it? City, Arsenal and Brighton, I think, are the games he started at left wing. Did really well. I guess I would say most of his games next year will be at left wing. But I think he's someone they view as pretty versatile, to be honest, that could fill both those roles.
I mean, I love to see Dorgu in attack, to be honest with you. I know I get your point, it's a small sample size, but I think he's done well in that small sample size. And you look at his numbers, and I'm a broken record, his numbers are like similar to players that have played the entire season in attack for teams that have challenged for the title. He's productive, and he's exciting to watch. And I just feel like, I'm a bit old school, mate. I feel like when you've got a player like that who is great going forward, and I know we all love it, don't we, now? We have attacking full-backs and wing-backs and all the rest of it, but just get him down the business end of the pitch and let him sort of do what he needs to do. But that means that you've got to have enough options at left-back, otherwise you might end up seeing Dorgu play left-back, because if you're relying on Luke Shaw, who, I know he played every game last season, but has a history of being injured a lot, then you're going to be in trouble. Where do we stand, Finn, do you think, with players from the academy in the left back situation, or players that have been through the academy? I mean, is there any options there? You know, wasn't that long ago that Harry Amas looked like an option, and that just seems to have gone out the window. Yeah,
well, I don't know if Harry Amas's time at United is completely over. I think he could definitely be in with a chance, depending on how pre-season goes. He had a really good start to his season, and then when he went to Norwich on his second half of the season loan, picked up a bad injury, and that kind of stopped all of his momentum. But he's certainly still a player who's highly rated. I know he's been back in full training and has already kind of started his preparations ahead of next season, and I think there's a belief within his camp and also at the club that he is still a player with a lot of potential and ability, and I think they'll certainly evaluate him to see if he could offer that. I think for a lot of these young players, pre-season will be quite important. Thinking about someone like Shea Lacey as well, that there are players who are kind of on the fringe who could offer a bit of competition and a bit of cover, and I think pre-season will be a good indication of what level they're at and how close they may be. So I think he'll be evaluated there. Godwill Kokonki can also play at left back. He's quite kind of a hybrid player, one of those modern profiles who can play as a full back or a centre back, and he's quite unique with his build. I mean, he's over 6'2", quite like a wide, almost stocky build, and yet can be quite mobile playing as a full back. So there are options there, but again, I don't see anything kind of in the immediate term. And like we mentioned, it looks like they want to sign someone who is ready-made but also has years ahead of them. So like you said, Lewis Hall seems like the kind of premier option there, and there's certainly levels between him and some of the academy players because they've got years of development ahead of them, and I don't think they're quite ready to make that step.
Yeah, I think Amas will probably be frustrated at the timing of that injury in the second half of the season, because he built up a lot of momentum. If he'd gone to Norwich and continued that on, then maybe we're having a different conversation about, is he ready to be a squad player this season? Now you're probably looking at another loan, aren't you, and wanting that full season of of development. But there is, as much as we're talking about left back now, I mean, it feels likely that Shaw's probably got 2 years left, maybe 3. I mean, he's out of contract at the end of the season, and I'd imagine United are going to treat that similar to the way they treated Maguire, and that they're going to let it develop during the season and see what role he's playing come January, February, see what his fitness is like. But there's probably going to be a squad role there again for someone like Amas 2-3 years down the line if he can make it his own.
I mean, we spoke to him a couple of years ago, and so I've mentioned this a few times, and he came across really well. Like, we had a few conversations with him off camera. Steve knows him and or has been chatting to him, and he was quite sort of self-critical at times about his own performances. He wasn't someone who was like, I've been playing for United first team, I've made it. He was like, I'm a decent guy, I can do a bit better, and that wasn't my best game and all that. Then we ended up doing an interview with him, and I know he did spoke to you guys in the press as well. He did a press back interview as well, and he just came across really well. And when I watch him, he's an exciting sort of modern fullback. He likes to get forward, doesn't he? And he's get stuck in. You just might have to temper our expectations or be patient with him, but I hope there is a future for him, because there's a lot to like about Harry Amas. There really is.
And I think looking at Lewis Hall and his trajectory in the last few years, I think United will want to avoid making the same mistake that Chelsea did, because Lewis Hall and Harry Amas probably had similar kind of statures in academy football in terms of how they were viewed and how they were rated as prospects. Obviously, Lewis Hall was developed as more of a midfielder and then became more of a fullback in recent years. But I think United will be looking at the way he's developed in recent years, and maybe we'll treat the Harry Amas case with a bit more patience, rather than just saying now's the time to cash in and now's the time to sell him on. And because I think we've done that in the past with a few players who, could be of some value to United if we did keep hold of them. So I think there is virtue in maybe being a bit more patient, giving him a loan or keeping him around the squad and seeing how he develops there.
Yeah, definitely. I want to keep an eye on, and hopefully he's got a very bright future ahead of him. Let's talk about midfielders then, because that's the hot topic, innit? I bet yours. Are you sick of it? Are you sick of talking and writing? Because me and you were chatting off camera, and like, it's all right for us because we can be a thinker. Come on here, we just chat, you know what? But you've got to like sit down and write and find a new angle and what's going on here and how can I move this story forward? Where are you at with the whole midfield situation?
Yeah,
is it getting a bit.
It feels like we've written a lot about it already. I was thinking before actually. I was having a coffee somewhere else in town and thought it's like last year was the year of the attack, wasn't it?
Yes,
revamping the attack.
very much so.
This year's the year of the midfield.
Yeah.
Next year's probably going to be the year of the defence. It almost feels like it's being done in stages. But yeah, it is really interesting, isn't it? Just because there's so many options there. I mean, last time I came in, we were talking about Edison, and that ended up moving pretty quickly, and he's probably going to look a good bit of business now.
Yeah.
But there's so many other kind of moving parts to it that it is. I mean, every day there's some kind of development or angle to kind of be thought of, isn't there?
Yeah, and you've got the sort of the spanner in the works of the World Cup as well, haven't you? Because that makes things a little bit difficult, because some players might, be able to make decisions or do whatever. There'll be other players who are like, look, I've got the World Cup, I'm not even thinking about anything yet. Yeah. So you're going to have to wait, and like no one likes to wait, no one likes to be patient. Like you said about Edison, looks like a good bit of business. We've spoken about him a lot. Makes sense. I think 35 million for a player who's 26. I know he's not got long left on his contract, but it's just the nature of the beast, and obviously now he's gone to the World Cup, which originally he wasn't. The other big name that everyone's talking about, who looks like, from what we gather, and you can correct me, the most likely one, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but the most likely one to come to Manchester United is Mateus Fernandes. What have you made of the United's interested in him? How sort of far down the line do you think this deal could be?
I don't think it's particularly far down the line at the moment, but I think the interest is definitely strong. At the moment, as things stand, I think he probably is the most likely next cab off the rank, so to speak. But like we say, there's a lot of moving parts, and one issue you've got is West Ham's price tag. There's talk of 85 million this morning. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah,
that would need to come down significantly for that to happen. There's potential for competition there. The other issue is who's running the show at West Ham at the moment. Obviously, well-publicised issues with one of their co-owners, co-chairman this week. Karen Brady stepped down. Like, it seems to be a club with a bit of a leadership vacuum at the moment, so I don't know if that's going to cause an issue. And I also, Elliot Anderson, we've said a lot of them, Elliot Anderson prefers to go to City. City are leading the race for that, but it's not done. And there's always that possibility. We've seen it before with City, that they will just decide, no, that's too much for us, and walk away. And I'm not sure I can see United committing, say, 60 million to Fernandes if Anderson is potentially still on the table. That's kind of that's maybe the point of interest there. That like how at what point do they say on Anderson, we're done, we're out, and do they kind of hang around in that race until there's movement within City? Will there be movement for the World Cup? Obviously, City have made their first move, and you would think they would want to know before the World Cup starts. I mean, England's World Cup doesn't start for a while yet, does it? I think I think they're the last team or one of the last teams to play. So there's time to get something done. But once the tournament starts and England are in game mode, it's probably harder to get things done. So in a way, it might help United if City got that Anderson deal done quickly, because at least it would allow them to move on and go, right, well, he's off the table now. What are our alternatives?
Do you think there'd be a reluctance to sign both those players? Do you think that's kind of just unrealistic and a little bit far-fetched to expect that they could go and spend 90, 100 million on Elliot Anderson and maybe 60, 65 on Fernandes?
I don't think it's impossible. I mean, I would probably be surprised if it happened, but I don't think it's impossible. It would definitely need Ugarte to go.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think there's probably a reasonable chance that happens, but it depends on the terms of it. But yeah, I don't think it's impossible. I mean, I think there's a reasonable chance if Ugarte goes, they will sign 3 midfielders.
You don't think it's impossible? So what you're saying is United are definitely going to sign Mateus Fernandes and Elliot Anderson.
Yeah.
Can we clip that up, please? There's your social media one. He's confirmed it there. Yeah. I do hear
the deals are already done.
Deals are basically done.
That's your
We're just wasting our time talking about it.
Here we go. It's not impossible. I get you, and I don't think it's likely at all. But there's part of me, like when you were talking then, Si, about like United last summer, we're sorting out the attack. And we went 62 million on Cunha, 65 million on Mbumo, 70 odd million on Sesko. Maths isn't my strong point, but that's around 200 million quid.
Yeah.
Is it beyond the realms of possibility that we looked at the midfield and went something similar in that figure this summer?
Absolutely not. No, I think that is within the realms of possibility, and that would, if you took those figures of say a 90, a 60 and a 35, you're kind of there, aren't you?
So the same, yeah.
It is possible.
I mean,
Ugarte would offset some of that, and I think the thing with Ugarte is I do think he's a sellable asset, because I don't think his reputation in Europe is maybe as bad as it is at Old Trafford. Like, it's clearly
I think you're right.
It's clearly not worked for him here.
Do you know what, right? The mad thing is with Ugarte is he's not as bad as a lot of people make out, right? He's not good enough for United, and I'm not going to sit here and defend him and say, well, you give him another season. No. But it's become almost like this figure of ridicule and hate. And some of his performances just aren't good enough, and it shows that. But then he's a little bit unlucky, and people don't like using the word lucky in football. But there's been times like I remember the Fulham game. Mm-hmm. We were 2-0 up, and he came on. I remember saying to me, mate, we'll draw 2-2 now. And within 10 minutes, it was 2-2. Yeah. And it weren't his fault.
No, he was there, wasn't
he? But Sesko obviously pops up with a winner. But there's been scenarios like that where he's come on, and his stats in terms of the amount of minutes he's played and the amount of games we've won or whatever are awful. Yeah. Like, his win rate is like the opposite of Kobbie Mainoo, where Kobbie Mainoo's win rate is ridiculous and is like the other end of the scale. But you make a point. I don't think people look at him across Europe or whatever and go, this is a guy who's just got nothing to offer. Yeah. I think if the price is sort of reasonable, which you'd expect it would be, and also he's at the World Cup and there's a chance.
I think Uruguay have got a good chance of having a good tournament. Yeah. And you can see Ugarte. I think he's quite an old school defensive midfielder, isn't he? Like, he's probably quite good at the tackling, the positioning, the cut it out. The issues at United, the biggest issues at United are when he's on the ball, and he's just not good enough on the ball. And I think in the Premier League now, you're kind of looking at number sixes, aren't you? Where you want players who can do that, but also, Casemiro's passing was phenomenal. I was amazed when he was at Real Madrid. It was like, win it, just pass it 5 yards to Kroos or Modric. When he came to United, it was like, wow, this fella can pass. Like, his passing range is unbelievable. And I don't think Ugarte has got that, and I think that's the biggest issue for him at United. But as an old school defensive midfielder, he's pretty good. Those players will probably do quite well at the World Cup, and I can see him having a good tournament. And if Uruguay gets to the quarters or something like that, there's probably a market for him there. If you can sell him, it makes signing 3 midfielders more likely.
Can I just go back to Mateus Fernandes as well, because one of the things that was really successful about last summer was that Mbumo publicly voiced through the media, the fact that United is his preferred club, and I think that probably made negotiations for United a lot easier because you didn't have a bidding war. Do you think that's something that could happen with Mateus Fernandes, or do you think his camp will want to, in the public eye at least, keep his options open?
Yeah, I think at the moment they'll probably want to keep his options open, and he's being linked with, and Mbeumo did come out and say that, and then Tottenham came in, and it's like, well, obviously I still want United.
Yeah.
With Fernandes, the stories Arsenal want him, the stories PSG want him. I think he's probably going to keep his options open at the moment. It does feel like United are more serious than the other two at the moment in terms of how much they want him. But yeah, I can't see him doing that at the moment. But obviously it would help. But in a way, it's the issue at the moment is West Ham's kind of desire to play hardball. Yeah. And like we say, the thing is West Ham have got to sell. They know they've got to sell, and they know he's going to leave. So I think they must know 85 million is just not going to happen. And as talented as he looks, and he looks a good player, he has got back-to-back Premier League relegations on his CV.
It's consistent, that's what we need. Old Trafford, a bit of consistency.
But like it's West Ham signed him for 38 million. I don't think they can then turn around and say we've turned him one season into an 85 million pound player and got relegated again. Yeah. Like I don't think it. I think that's a pretty hard sell.
Yeah. Is it Jorge Mendes? Sorry, Finn, I didn't mean to cut it off. Is it Jorge Mendes his agent?
I believe so. I'm not sure if he directly represents him. But
okay, is it his agency?
Yeah,
so they're not daft, are they?
No,
these aren't agents who don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They'll know, look, even if you want United, let's not be too forceful in this because we can at least get your price up for you to go to United.
Yeah.
And United have pretty good, they certainly did have pretty good relations with that agency. In 24 they signed Yoro, signed Ugarte from them.
Which some people suspected was a double deal.
You take one.
You buy, we'll get you Yoro, but you take your guy.
2 for the price of 2. So those, if those relations are still intact, then it's obviously a helpful starting point, and it might be a helpful starting point with Ugarte represented by them in it to say we want Fernandes, but we need this guy to go to make way.
One thing that's encouraging, maybe from the West Ham point of view, is I think it was quite similar with Mohamed Kudus going to Spurs last summer. I think they maybe asked initially for around 85 million as well, and that came right down to, was it 55 million in the end? So obviously it's just kind of natural posturing that you get, isn't it? Yeah.
You'd expect it, really.
Especially now they get relegated.
Yeah, and we've spoken about this quite a lot. If you actually look at West Ham's squad, they haven't got they've got players that can move on and sell, but not many of them are young, have done well, and have got like a really high value.
He's their most sellable asset.
There's only, I think, him and maybe the other lad we were linked with, is it El Hadji Juve?
Somerville as well.
Somerville's quite, a good one. But then a lot of the other ones, you look at him and they're like 29, 30.
Well, that's it. Bowen's probably their best player, but he's of an age where you're just not going to get that sort of money for him.
And also there's sort of the feeling that he might stick around.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, he might probably leave, but there's this sort of idea that maybe because he's sort of, seems to be quite close to the club, that he might stick around and try and get him back up. But they haven't got loads of saleable assets, so you can understand why they're trying to get the most for the sort of star marquee one. I'm going to fire some other targets at you. There's loads. We could sit here all day going through midfield targets, but I'll try to keep it down to just the 17. We've spoken about Anderson, we've spoken about Mateus Fernandes. Baleba, if we were having this conversation in 2025, we'd be all over Carlos Baleba, wouldn't we? Because he was like the main midfield target, and at one point it looked like for about 3 days that United were going to go and get him in that summer, because it was like we'd done all this business with the attackers, and it was like, actually, could they be ready to do something? Didn't happen. He's not had a great season. We don't need to pretend. Do you think he's had such a bad season that he's put United off, or do you think there's still an interest there?
Yeah, I think there's still an interest there.
Right.
I think the data looks pretty good on him from a United point of view. I think they like the data. They're willing to kind of accept. He's a young player. These things happen. Maybe the interest unsettled him. Maybe that should be a concern. The fact he can be unsettled by interest. Yeah. But I do think they still like him. I think the problem is they thought he'd be cheaper now, and I don't think he is at the moment. And that is a problem. And you can kind of see Brighton's point of view, that Brighton wanted 100 million last year. Now it's like, well, he should be cheaper now because he had a bad season, and Brighton are going, well, that's your fault he had a bad season. Like, you want to sell him. Why do you want a discount? So, and we know Brighton do play hardball over transfers and tend to play it pretty well. So I definitely think there's still interest there. I just don't think the figures didn't work last summer, and the figures at the moment still don't work.
And it's like, you might look at someone like Casado and say, well, look at the money went for him, but he was consistent. He didn't have
more than
and also, they had like a little mini bidding war going on, didn't they? Yep. Well, you had Jurgen Klopp more or less announcing they got him, and then Chelsea going, no, you haven't, we have. Like, it's completely different where you're looking at a player that's had 3 seasons in the Premier League and one of them he's not been very good. To the point of even like minutes, he's not played as many minutes.
No.
Like, you can argue about how well he's played, but he's been subbed sort of almost every game. I think we spoke to Kieran Maguire, who does Price of Football, who's a massive Brian fan, and he was saying, I think he's had like 3 full good games.
I think he came off at half time, 3, maybe 4 games last season, which is not great.
Like, is it usually getting hooks at half time, unless it's an injury, obviously, it's because you're doing something very wrong. So I can understand it. I think the impression that you get around that is it'd have to be, a fee that makes it attractive, because at the minute,
he'd love to come, he wants to join United. But
again, similar to my question before, do you think he could help that deal along by pushing for it through his agents?
I think he probably could. I mean, from what I'm led to believe, he really, he wanted to join United last year, evidently, and he still really wants to join United. And he probably knows that it's now or never. Yeah. If it doesn't happen for him this summer, we're talking of them signing 2-3 midfielders. Something would have to go wrong for them to be in the market for another midfielder next year, when you've also got Mainu there, who's 21. Like, it feels like it's now or never. Yeah. So, maybe he does have to try and force it in some way.
That'd be a way to ingratiate yourselves with the Brighton fans, wouldn't it? Have a stinker of a season and then tell them, you want to leave at the end of it. Not that I'm a Brighton fan, obviously, but I kind of feel sorry for him if he does that.
There's a lot of making up to do if he does that and then doesn't
kind of taking the mick here, bro. What's going on? Another midfield. This is the last one, trust me, on midfielders anyway. Aurélien Tchouameni. This one kind of came out of the blue, didn't it? About 4 or 5 months ago. I know you've spoken about this, and it was like, no one really saw it coming. But it was one of those where initially you go, no chance. Like, forget that. He's mint. They ain't going to sell him. It's Real Madrid. But then you go, hang on a minute. Maybe if this and this happens, Real Madrid do move players on. They do move players on to Manchester United. They've moved players on, not just Casemiro and Varane, who are getting towards the end of their careers or whatever, but we've had players like Di Maria who still could do a job even though he didn't do it at United. Yeah. So it's not beyond the realms of possibilities, to coin your phrase, it's not impossible.
That's a trademark, that.
Yeah, you trademark that one. It's not impossible, sort of. You made it here first, but do you
Following's going to go global with that.
Mate, you'll still get grief for saying that. Do you think there is still a chance there?
I still think there's a chance. I don't think it's likely, but I think there's a chance. There's a lot going on at Real Madrid this summer. Obviously, the presidential election's been done now. Perez is back in. Mourinho's going to get that job. It seems Mourinho still wants Tchouameni. There's obviously that issue with Tchouameni and Valverde. Can they kiss and make up? Can they still be friends? But also, Perez said late in that election campaign he was going to offer 150 million euros for a player this week. Yeah. And we don't know
I
who
think
that
those
is.
elections are nuts.
They're mad, aren't they? They're
like, the way they just come out and say this. And the other guy, was it Riquelme, who was saying, I'm going to go and get Haaland. And then City and Haaland were like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
like, you're definitely not. That's not happening. Yeah. And we're going to sue you. And it's like,
it's good entertainment.
Yeah,
it's great entertainment, isn't it? Yeah.
What in the absolute shade you see him is going on here with these mad promises?
It is crazy. But if they do, I don't know who the player is. But if they do that, then obviously they've got to sell someone. And they also want a midfielder. Riquelme mentioned Rodri, and it's not just Riquelme that wants Rodri. Like, everyone at Real Madrid wants Rodri. They've been linked with Enzo Fernandes as well. If they get someone like that, a midfielder probably has to go to make it happen. So it does feel like there's a lot going on at Real this summer. I don't think Tchouameni's likely, but it kind of feels like it was almost opportunistic for United, that they sensed that something might have to give here. Yeah. And they kind of put their hands up and were like, we want to be. It was weird as well that
United showed that interest, and then it was only about a week later that he had that fight with Valverde.
Yeah.
Which was like, all of a sudden the interest was like there, and you go, and now he's had a fight with the skipper. Oh my God, this is going to happen. Now they've downplayed it, haven't they? And I think Valverde said he banged his own head on the table, which is ridiculous. but do you know what I mean? But it does seem like that's cooled a little bit, like the whatever was going on with them, they seem to have kissed and made up.
It does.
So we'll
and it is the problem that there are, like, of all those players there, they're obviously not going to sign all of them. At some point, they have to commit to one. and step away from the others in theory.
Yeah.
So, and like we say with Tchouaméni, there's a lot of moving parts. Things might change, but that might be in August.
Yeah.
United
You'd
might
imagine
want.
it would be after the World Cup.
Yeah, I think it would be late if that happens. Like, I don't see Real Madrid turning around this week and going, yeah, he can go. Like,
I do wonder with Rodri just whether he'll go to Real Madrid. Does feel like that.
More recently, wasn't it downplayed a little bit?
Yeah, but I don't know. I just feel like with Guardiola leaving City and obviously Rodri,
it's been a lot of flirting there, aren't there? From Real
and I feel like
Rodri.
that kind of makes sense. And if it is going to happen, now would be his chance to go there. And look, I'm not just saying this because I don't like City, but let's be real. Real Madrid are in different stratosphere to Manchester City. So yeah, it'd be one to keep an eye on. I want to talk a little bit about some of the departures as well. The sort of the big talking point this summer, and I think it's only going to get worse during the World Cup, is Marcus Rashford.
Yeah.
Because we're in this weird scenario where he went on loan to Barcelona, he helped them win the Liga, he did very well there, and then they went out and bought Anthony Gordon in his position for 80 million quid. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
So that obviously has thrown a spanner in the works there. Now there's still the potential that he could carry on at Barcelona and they could come back in for him. He's got 300k, I think, a week wages that are obviously a massive sticking point. Then there's a question, like you mentioned with Ugarte, and it sounds crazy to me to be saying this about Marcus Rashford, but does a good World Cup help him? Does someone go, oh, there's something, maybe someone like Bayern Munich might look at him? What do you think the sort of state of play is with Marcus Rashford at the minute?
I mean, the thing with Rashford is he's very clearly a good player, isn't he?
Yeah.
Like, you can look at Rashford and go, like, he has, things turned a bit sour for United, but he's on that sort of money because he scored 30 goals in Tonali's first season. Yeah. He's just at a season where he scored 14 and got 14 assists for Barcelona. Like, those are good numbers.
Yeah,
there's no getting away from the fact they're good numbers. And someone there is going to get a good player. The problem is the wages. He's on the kind of money that no one else in Europe is really going to pay, especially for someone who turns 29 in October. I can see Rashford getting a good club, but I can also see it dragging on because there is going to have to be some kind of negotiation there. It's almost at the moment like United can just go, well, Barcelona have got the option until Monday, so we can't really do anything. That's pretty obvious. Barcelona aren't going to pay the option. And United have been insistent throughout this whole scenario that that's the deal we agreed. You want him, you pay 26 million. Problem is on Tuesday, they have to accept the fact and look at other options. And Barcelona might come back in and say, we want another year's loan, or we'll have him for 13 million. And then I think United are going to be reluctant to be seen as pushovers. With
that's what I wanted to ask you about, because is that the optics of it and the reputation as well in it of like United give you an ultimatum, just ignore it and you can get away with it.
For years we've been pushed around by clubs and it's been kind of too easy to say actually this is what we're going to pay, and we've not really had much opportunity to push back against that.
No.
So,
you almost need them to say to Barcelona, you've had your chance.
Yeah.
Like now. And there are going to be other clubs interested because his CV's good. His numbers are good. Yeah. He played, it was a friendly against New Zealand, but he was much better than Anthony Gordon on Saturday night. And like I say, that whole Gordon thing is pretty weird. But you just look at Bayern Munich wanted Gordon. They're kind of there's an obvious gap there now where they'd go for a similar player.
I think he'd smash it in a Bundesliga.
Looking at the way, obviously,
I think he would.
Harry Kane's maybe another level up, but you look at the way that he's performed in Germany. I think the style of football in Germany would really suit Rashford, getting space in behind. It feels like a good fit for him.
Yeah, well, you've got obviously they wanted Gordon to be backup competition for Diaz. They had Jackson on loan last year, who's gone back to Chelsea. Rashford could almost fill both of those roles. Newcastle have just lost Gordon. Do they look at Rashford? Arsenal want a left winger. Like, do they look at him?
Weird thing with Arsenal and Rashford, and I keep seeing it on socials and people saying, like, I just can't see
Surely
United.
we can't let that happen. It's just.
I think that's the problem. Is that you don't really want him to
the optics
strengthen.
are just all
I know,
right.
but what's the wage structure like at Arsenal? Would they be up for that? Because I didn't think they paid the top whack.
No.
I know Saka's on quite a lot, and they do have some high earners.
Is
but
it? I
don't think it's that level.
That's what I mean. Would they break the wage structure for Marcus Rashford?
It feels like there's going to be a point this summer where Rashford's going to have to go. He's going to have to accept a pay cut, and then you're probably in the realms where you end up paying a player off. And say he gets 200 grand a week somewhere or 180 grand a week somewhere, and it's 140 grand pay cut. Do United give him 50 grand a week of that for the remainder of his contract or something like that? You see that happen quite a lot. It gets him off the wage bill. It's hard to see a clean break, as it were, at the moment, where United are going to have to bend in some way, I think.
It's just, when you look back at those pictures of like Greenwood, Rashford and Martial, and it was like whatever it was, 60 goals in a season between them. Yeah. And I remember, I think I tweeted, it's probably some digital footprint of me saying like, we're set for the next decade here, this is it. How many titles are these three going to win? And obviously we know what happened with Mason Greenwood and why he had to leave United, rightly so. Anthony Martial, I think, has just left, was it Monterrey? 30.
Yeah.
And Marcus Rashford can't find a club.
Yeah.
And we're like, how has this happened, man? It's like, it's deflating for a multitude of reasons.
Luckily, I feel like the front three we've assembled now is the closest to that kind of attacking potency that we saw from them.
Yeah.
And I feel like we finally got our attack in order a bit after some underwhelming players, maybe.
No, we've been through a lot, haven't we, to get to where we're at. And I think the fact that it wasn't like unbelievable, but the nice solid numbers of all of them getting double figures.
Is the idea of the potential as well?
Yeah, and it's like
good age.
It's a good age, solid start. They all offer a little bit something different. Obviously, Sesko's a more out and out number 9, and Cunha's.
They all had good first.
Yeah, and I just think you want that because we've had players that have come and have had difficult first seasons, much more difficult than any of those three did.
The challenge for those three, I think, is next season. All three of them should be looking at getting 15 goals.
Sesko, I think if all goes right for Sesko, I think he could be one whose output really goes up.
Yeah.
You look at his underlying numbers and they indicate that he could be due a lot of goals next season, so I'd hope for like 20-25 in all comps at least.
Another one to just ask you quickly about Andre Onana, where we up to with him. Is he going?
I think he's going to go, I just don't think there's room for him at United. I don't think United want him back. I think they've made it pretty clear they don't want him back. You've also, he's not a natural number 2, is he? And you've also got the optics of, do you have this guy who comes back as a number 2 who believes on about 190 grand a week when your number 1 is on less than half of that? Like it's the kind of thing that creates an imbalance within a squad, that your number 2 goalkeeper is paid more than twice your number 1.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not going to work. And your number 1 is rightly going to say, well, hang on, I want a slice of that pie. Onana is just not a number 2 goalkeeper, is he?
No.
I think it's been made pretty clear.
Some would argue he's not a number 1.
Well,
I'm not going to say that because he won the FA Cup. There's actually, I lied to you, Ty, when I said that in terms of incomings we're done, because there's some I forgot a midfielder that we've been linked with, and I should have mentioned Sandro Tonali.
Oh yeah, because
I know you've written about him. I don't know. I find this all a bit odd. I'm not gonna. I don't know. It's just something about it. Like, because at one point we were linked with Bruno Guimaraes as well, and it was like, and then now it's like, oh yeah, actually Sandro Tonali, and Newcastle, what about 100 million for him? And there's still a bit of interest for United, but we're also interested in Lewis Hall, and I'm like Sandro Tonali is a good player. I'm not getting me wrong. Whenever I've watched him, I think he's, I think he'd be a good signing, but I don't know. I just don't see this happening myself.
I'd be surprised. I'd be very surprised if it happened. Yeah. And at the end of the day, United are not going to sign Lewis Hall and Sandro Tonali from Newcastle.
No,
there's not a world where that happens. And Newcastle have already sold Gordon for big money this summer. They don't need to sell now. And Lewis Hall, given there's other midfield options to Tonali, Hall feels like if you're going to go for one Newcastle player, you make it Hall, I think. And maybe he's easier to get out as well in that. I mean, I think he was dropped for the last game of the season for Dan Burn. And like, if Dan Burn's playing left back ahead of you,
there were some rumours, I'm not sure how much credibility there was, but there were some rumours that maybe he had a slight fallout with Eddie Howe.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know how reliable or concrete that is, but there were suggestions of that.
I bet he's fuming, Lewis Hall, that Dan Burn's gone to the World Cup, and some people saying, well, you can play at left back.
And also look at the way that the Edison's now being called up, and it's hard to overlook the fact that that's come just after he's basically signed for United. So maybe someone like Lewis Hall looks at that and says, well, reputationally, it could be a good move for me.
Lewis Hall needs to remember, no one gives a toss when you play for Newcastle, right? Just nothing happens for you. No one cares. You come at United and all of a sudden you're England captain. Yeah, that's how it works.
You start up front.
Just briefly, one final transfer I'm going to ask you about.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to go, it's not impossible, but I'll let you say that. Morgan Rogers. This is the last one, I promise. Morgan Rogers, because me and Joe were speaking about Morgan Rogers, and Joe does this thing, he's very good at it. Well, I'll start a podcast with him or something. I go, there's no way you're getting Morgan Rogers. You don't even want him. What does he do? And by the end of it, I'm going, oh, yeah, actually, okay, fair enough. like, he's a good player. We know his numbers are solid. There is, I think, some relationship there with Jason Wilcox.
Yeah, he was there at City's academy.
Yeah,
so
and with Carrick at Borough.
Yeah, so there you go, ticking 2 of those boxes. However, fee sounds like it's going to be a lot. Can United afford to, like you mentioned earlier, we did the attack last summer.
Yeah.
Can we afford to also spend 70, 80 million quid on Morgan Rogers for the attack again? What do you think of this one?
United like him. United definitely like him. There's a view that Villa might think it's a good time to sell because they need to revamp that squad.
Yeah.
And maybe they cash in on their best player. The problem is that the competition. I mean, I think every big club in the Premier League likes him. I think most of Europe like him. He's clearly a quality player. He might well start ahead of Bellingham in the World Cup. I think the attraction for him for United is that he can play on the left wing, and we mentioned that left wing slot, and also he's probably an ideal replacement for Fernandes when Fernandes goes. So there's an attraction there. He's definitely a player United like. So I wouldn't be shocked if that happened. But like you say, the fee is going to be big. And the whole, like in January, left wing was a pretty high priority for United. In January, they were looking at that. They looked at Diamonde. It looks like he's going to go to Liverpool now. They were interested in him, and it did feel like that was going to be a major issue this summer. It feels like that's dropped in priorities now, partly because of Dorgu. Cunha obviously did all right there, albeit I don't think it's Cunha's best position off the left. It's dropped in priority, but Illiman and Dye as well, they like Njai, Everton, who again can kind of play that left wing role, can play on the right. He fits that idea of a versatile attacker who can kind of play all three roles, could even play as a striker. And he's kind of like a cheaper alternative to Rodgers, I think, isn't he?
Yeah.
So I think that the left wing is still something to watch this summer, because I think they are aware it's an area maybe they're a little bit light in. Like you mentioned, Dorgu's versatility, he's still young. Cunha, good player. Is left wing his best position? Like, I'm not 100% sure it is. Maybe he gets games as a centre forward as well next season. But I mean, I think Rodgers is a great player. I really like him, and United like him, as a lot of Premier League clubs do.
Yeah, they are in a bit of a pickle, aren't they, Villa? Financially.
I'm not sure how much getting Champions League again plays into maybe helping them there, but
I think you could see them selling him. I think you're right. I think I just don't think it'd be United.
They've got an ageing squad, I think, haven't they? And I think it was mentioned during the Europa League final that was it something like 7 of those players who started were there when Emery arrived at Villa. It doesn't feel like they've really freshened that squad up much, and they probably need the
because you look at players like McGinn, Watkins, Tielemans, who are like late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah,
it's and obviously, like we mentioned, West Ham there. If you do need to sell players, you're not going to sell a lot of players at that age.
No,
it's going to be someone like Morgan Rogers is the marquee guy in it.
He's the one.
But because he's had such a good season, another one, if he does anything in the World Cup, that's only going to increase his value. Especially, I mean, I don't think he should, but especially if he did get in the team ahead of Jude Bellingham and did well, then who knows, man. But
what about the Swedish lad playing number 6 for Villa in the Europa League final? Lindelof, is it? You could get him in there.
Never heard of him.
Never heard of him.
Do you know what? That'd be like a Ed Woodward Man United move. That wouldn't it? We'd go and spend 80 million quid on him or something.
We're playing him in the wrong position all along.
Yeah. Well, actually, he's the answer to all our problems. No, do you know what, Lindelof? Fair play to him. I'm glad he's done well there, because I think it was right for him to move on.
Definitely.
We'll see how that pans out, but. Great chatting to you. We'll get you on again during the summer if that's okay.
Absolutely,
because there's loads happening. Obviously, with the World Cup, that could throw up a few things as well. There's always transfer news going on. You can check out Ty's work in the Manchester Evening News. Anything you're working on at the minute that we can give us a little taste of?
Anything I'm working on?
Is it just waiting to see what happens, or waiting to see when, any stories that pop up? I'm sure there's always some in there. I mean, you were chatting earlier, weren't we? And people say to us, both like, oh, you must enjoy now the quiet time in the summer when there's no games. You're like, I wish. Like, it's just crazy.
The games and the press commentators look after themselves. Now's the time where you've got to find something to write or talk about, haven't you?
I love it, man. I love transfers. Much prefer it to games anyway. Right. Go and check out Ty's work in the Manchester Evening News. The link in the description. You know where I find Finn as well, Academy Scoop. That's been Ty, that's been Finn. I've been Jay Moore. This has been a little chat about Manchester United's potential transfers. Thanks for watching.